It's time. Good afternoon. We'll get this meeting started. I'd like to welcome everybody for being here. And a roll call. Gene, he's excused. Jason, keep him in your prayers. He started his first procedure this morning at 10:30. Let's just keep him in your prayers and thoughts. We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. And then the prayer follows afterwards.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, Heavenly Father, we come before you today to give you thanks for this day which you have bestowed upon us, Lord. We ask you to please pray for each and every one of us here tonight, Lord, the council, our department heads. We especially pray for all of our employees, Lord. We ask you to please open our hearts and our minds to what's going to be discussed tonight. We pray for our mayor in a very special way, that God grants him the power that he needs to get through what he has to go through, Lord. And we thank God for the Gila Valley and for this wonderful weather today. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Tammy, any requests? Neither one? Okay. Then we'll move on to the next item, the employee benefits.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm going to say a few words before Matthew and Danielle and Cabrina talk about the employee benefits. I called all of you guys. I found out that in the past, apparently we had been sending our information regarding the health insurance to Ragged in March. I had never had that discussion, and I know that we never had it as a group, so staff never had it and council never had it. So we got an email indicating that the health insurance decisions they needed by the end of March, basically, and that it was so that they could prepare for open enrollment. So obviously I've contacted all of you on that issue. So tonight, as part of the benefits, we will need direction on the health insurance breakout as percentages, and also on the HSA component. All other components we can continue to discuss in the budget process as we move forward. But those two items we'll need direction on tonight. And then, as we've done in the past, when you pass the budget, the HSA and the health insurance that we get direction on tonight will be part of balancing that budget. You vote on the budget, and then that material gets adopted. So that's how that's going to work. I also wanted to talk a little bit about, Matthew has a presentation tonight. I would ask when we make the presentation this evening that we are allowed to get through it in its entirety. I think that if there are questions for clarification, technical questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them. But the way that the presentation is structured, you really don't see the full impact of what we've put together until we get to the end. So I would ask that if we can, let us get through the presentation. Again, if you have technical questions or something for clarification purposes, by all means ask, but it would be helpful if we can get through the presentation in its entirety. The packages that we're going to present this evening, we took an approach where, based on the work session that we had, there was some discussion about making sure that we kind of brought things in a more comprehensive way. So there are several areas in this presentation that we will go over, and at the end, those components will be put together into basically scenarios that you'll be able to see what's in them and what they'll cost. So again, it's important that we kind of make our way to the end. The way that this was built is that the scenarios as constructed will affect all city employees in one way or another. They will address the health insurance pretty comprehensively, and I know that has been a focus for council. And so we tried to give scenarios. We discussed them at the last work session, 80-20, 85-15, 90-10. In the process of working on those, there were some other things we came across, like some information on the HSA. We thought that we would fix that as well. That's in the presentation. Danielle will speak to that. We put a 1% number in, much like we did this year's. That would be for all employees. That would be a across-the-board raise on July 1 for all employees, so that would hit everybody. So, for example, employees like myself that are not on a family plan that wouldn't get impacted by the insurance, would still be impacted by the 1%. So there's something in there for them. And also, we would do the second year of our longevity program. So FY23 would be that second year. That would mean that all employees had been impacted by that program. Again, with the discussions that we had at the work session being that as we move forward, we would be looking at other aspects of employee compensation and benefits. So the emphasis in this cycle is on the health insurance. That's the direction that we had decided to go in. It doesn't mean that we have to be done, whatever we decide tonight. The personnel costs are an ongoing cost of doing business. It should be looked at every year. The emphasis can change. So in the out years, if in fact we wanted to do other things with the health insurance, we can continue to do that. My guess is that the emphasis would probably more likely be more on the salary side going forward. We've discussed some of that and the direction we want to go in. So again, I want you to think of the presentation not as a one-year presentation, but as the first year of an ongoing process to kind of get this personnel thing under control and make it as much a part of the ongoing budget process as O&M and capital and anything else. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew and let him run with it.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and members of council. We have benefits and compensation options round 2. So as we discussed in the previous work session, we would like to change the insurance premium, or we are bringing to you options to change the insurance premium. The first, what it's set at currently is 70-30. This slide is going to show the change from 70-30 to 80-20. In the yellow is what we currently pay for our insurance premiums. And then in the blue, that's going to be the new premium contributions by fund when we go to the new premiums in July 1. So that's going to be a $196,255 increase. And in all the following sides with the different scenarios, that number is going to stay the same. That won't change because the new premium is going to be there set on July 1st. In the green section, you're going to see this would be the increase at an 80-20 split by fund, which it will be a total of $232,412. And at the bottom, you can see I've broken it out. In the blue is the new premium increase. The green is the 80-20 change. So that would be a total change of $428,667. If we continue, we also have the option of an 85-15. Again, the yellow is what we currently pay at our 70-30. The blue is the new premium. Those numbers haven't changed. The darker green would be the 85-15 split with a total change in that category of $337,348. So a total change of $533,603 with a new premium and then an 85-15 split. And if we continue, we have the 90-10 option as well. The yellow and the blue don't change. The lighter green, a $442,284 increase to the city. So a total of $638,539. So when we looked at compensation and insurance altogether, we also talked about the different plans of 80-20, 85-15, and 90-10. So as you can see here in summary, we have the different changes with those different plans, and that's just the insurance portion. But we also continue to look at what we could do for employees that don't fall under that category of employee spouse, employee children, and employee family plans. So we have now a base salary adjustment that would also capture those other employees. And Cabrina's going to touch on this briefly.
So, thank you. You were handed out a paper that shows the option for a 1, a 2, and a 3%. However, the options that you're going to be seeing throughout this presentation are going to focus on the 1%. This slide shows you the breakout by fund, the amount that it would cost to give a 1%, including all benefits to the city. This total citywide cost would be $114,559. $58,000 of that would hit the general fund.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Real quick, will this involve everybody? Or
This is
the fire
full-time
department
and-
the council too, or no?
No, full-time and part-time only. It won't impact any of the fire department or the council.
Okay.
Is there any questions? And then from here, we're going to hand it back to Matthew.
So with the insurance options and then also the base salary increase, we've thrown together a couple slides that kind of give some scenarios. These aren't all the scenarios, but this is the one that we kind of figured we could target with that 1% increase and then the 80-20 split as well. This one shows the 80-20 split in the 1%, which would be a total of $543,227, and then it's also broken out by all the operating funds on the bottom there. And it's going to continue like that for all of the other three options that we gave, the 85-15 and then the 90-10 as well. And as you can see, as we go up through the 85-15, the price is going to, or the cost is going to go up to $648,000, $163,000. And then they have all the operating fund breakouts down there on the bottom. And then if you go to 90-10, that would be a $753,099 increase. So with that, we're going to look at now the HSA portion. So in looking at our insurance and our compensation, we looked at everything that we offer to the employees. One of those being the HSA, which is offered through our insurance as an option with the high deductible health plan. Previously, the intent was to match the maximum that was allowable by the IRS, half of that, so that employees could see a good benefit with that from the city. And Danielle's going to talk about that a little bit on this next slide.
Good evening. So as Matthew mentioned, the original intent of the employer HSA contribution was to match half of the max annual allowable contribution that is set by the IRS. The employer contribution hasn't changed since 2019, and the IRS has increased the max allowable contribution amount, self-only to $3,650, family to $7,300. So to meet our original intent, to match that half of the total allowable, we need to increase the employer contribution from $1,400 to $1,825 for self-only, and from $3,000 to $3,650 for family. This will affect the budget overall by about $32,000. Do you have any questions on that?
Is it question time yet?
Yes.
Almost.
Almost.
Well, if he has a question on this specific slide.
I can wait.
So with those three options that we presented to you, they're kind of a recipe, or they're kind of ingredients in this whole recipe of benefits and compensation for the employees. We've tied that all together in these last three slides. Again, with the 80-20, the 85-15, and then the 90-10. All of those, we have the 1% base salary increase in there as an option, and then the HSA contributions. So our original recommendation was the 80-20 split for insurance premiums and a 1% base salary increase and an increase to the HSA contributions. In the table we have, the columns are the operating funds, and then the rows are going to be those different ingredients in the recipe, if you may. In the bottom right corner, that would be the total cost to the city across all funds. And then if we continue on to the next slide, this would be what council requested at that 85-15 split. Again, we only have a 1% base salary increase in there, and then the HSA contributions would remain the same. So that's a $680,000, $887 increase. And then finally, we have the 90-10 option in there as well, and in the bottom right-hand corner would be the total increase across all funds. And now, at the end of our presentation, if you guys have any questions, you may go ahead and ask them.
So, without doing anything at all, the way the insurance went up now, that's gonna be $1,700,000.
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, where are you getting that $1,700,000
I'm
from?
looking at 90-10, the blue total, because we're now impacted with this year's raise in the insurance.
So that is how much we pay currently.
That's how
Or the yellow is how much we, or at the end of the yellow is how much we pay currently. It would increase by $196,000.
So doing nothing, it goes up to $1,700,000.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an increase of 1.7 million. It would go up to that much. That's how much we would expend total. We currently expend 1.5 million. So it'd be almost a $200,000 increase.
Yes, 196.
Yes.
So with the 90-10, you're saying the total charge would be $638,500 39.
Vice Mayor Councilman Lopez, that is correct.
That's the increase.
That's the increase. That involves, I had my paper at home. That also gets added to the 1,700,000, or is part of that already in there?
Vice Mayor Councilman Lopez, that $638,539 would be an increase to that 1.5 million.
1.5.
Yes.
So the 196 is already in there. I mean, the increase of the 196 already in there.
Is in that 638,539 at the bottom.
Okay.
That 196 is in that amount, yes.
So if we make it, I don't see the 8515 again.
It's up on the board if you want to look at it.
8515 would cause, so the employee portion, the 2 million would be the total, that's the total with that added in there?
Yes, so that in that green section, that 2,037,493, that would be the total across all funds.
Cost all funds.
That it would
added
cost
to
the
it.
city.
That's that 533, okay.
If it helps to ask it this way, if the 196 is baked in, the 1% is baked in, it looked to me like 80 to 85, 85 to 90 was just about $110,000 increase.
The 1% isn't in the insurance part of it.
No, the one,
Not yet, not here.
Vice Mayor Councilman
Right,
Hemphill,
yeah,
that 1% is not in that
right.
So
number.
if we go 8515, we're gonna be paying 2 million
37.
more. We're gonna be, that's gonna be now forever 2 million on that.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, that is how much we will pay every year on insurance if we go with the 8515.
Until it goes up next year.
Till it goes up next year. Okay. That's the question I had on that.
Anybody
That's
else
what I
have?
figured at home on that. Okay, so, and then the 1%, 1% is 1,114. We got ideas for 2% and 3%, but the base salary increase isn't what you're looking for tonight. You're just mainly looking at the insurance and the HSA.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, we're actually looking for direction on everything if we can get it. We need direction on the HSA and the health insurance. But in order to balance the budget, the reason we brought this as a package is because there was a conversation about not piecemealing it. Doesn't mean you have to decide it all tonight, but the idea is that each component has been broken out so you can see the individual cost. If we want to continue to have a conversation on the 1% later on, we can. That can change. Only the HSA and the percentage breakouts, we need direction on tonight so we can move forward on. The other stuff could still be in play. The other point I want to make, and again, we gave scenarios because they were requested. 80-20 is what we brought. We added 85-15 and 90-10. In my opinion, 90-10 is not realistic. Again, we've kind of gotten here over a period of time. It's going to take us some time to pull out of it. So based on the amount of revenue that's available, 80-20 and 85-15, in my opinion, are what is realistically in play here tonight. And then in terms of whatever percentages that you want to do, 1% or so on, we can look at that. But again, if we were to do the 85-15 scenario, the 1% base, the HSA and the STEP program, you don't really have a whole lot of money left in the budget to do anything else at that point.
But like it was said, we do the insurance, it's not gonna touch everybody.
Correct, which is why we did this kind of basket where the 1% is for everybody on July 1, right? And then the STEP, of course, would get enacted as well, so the balance of the employees would be impacted by the STEP.
And the 85-15, I think Sabrina told me, but I forgot, that will cut people's premiums in half?
Councilman Lopez, technically, yes, it will. But because the health insurance premiums are pre-tax, they won't realize a full 50% reduction.
No, that's what shocked some of them. Well, I was paying $300 They said they was getting, but the taxes changed that, of
Yes.
course. So, because the insurance doesn't affect everybody, we're also looking for a base pay,
Correct.
which the base pay is at the bottom, which is gonna help us also attract people, hopefully, to come here. So, you would 2% on top of the 80-15, could we handle it?
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, I think it would be cutting it very, very close. I think it would be difficult to do that.
About 1.5.
Well, we can auction it down, but I think that the 1% is probably a better number. And again, let me emphasize something. This isn't gonna be the last word in health insurance or salaries, right? It just so happens that the discussion's turned on focusing on the health insurance, and that's kind of where the bulk of the monies are going. You do have the second step, which will get the rest of the employees, right? So we can't do it all in 1 year. We can come back, the emphasis will probably change in future years, it probably will reverse, because we will have taken a lot off the table for health insurance. We can incrementally take that down farther if council wants to do that. And there'll be more of an emphasis in future years on salaries. So again, the constellation of the benefits that are being given tonight were predicated on emphasizing health insurance first, and then trying to get as far as we could to hit all the employees, hence the 1%. We had the STEP, that's a given, that has to go forward, and we fixed the HSA. So I understand, and we could switch it up. You could do 80-20 and do 2% if you wanted to. There are different ways that you can put this together. We were simply trying to emphasize the health insurance because that was really where the discussion was going. At 85-15, I would not recommend going 2%.
But I'm also looking at them keeping more of their money, because that's what they see. Because they see the prices in the store. And how much they keep of their money is what they'll see. And so that's what I'm trying to juggle here, to where everybody gets something. And it's a juggling match.
And again, I think the really important part behind this is that it's more than one bite at the apple, right? So we'll be able to come back to this. And again, we could go 80-20 and do more on the salary side. My sense is that most did not want to go in that direction. Obviously, we're here tonight to make that decision. We can change the recipe, if you will, and go in a different direction, but we need to know tonight on the insurance, and that if we went for something less than 85-15, it would likely free up enough money to do 1.5 or 2%. We could look at that.
Yeah, I since we need to get to some point of direction, I like the 85-15. I like that direction that's taking us with the insurance. That would be my preference. I know we don't have to agree on the 1% necessarily now, but the recommendation of 85-15, 1% and the HSA as it was presented would be my preference.
And the step.
Yes, exactly.
I would agree with Councilman Hemphill on that,
And
too.
the step, what step?
The second half of the longevity.
Oh, yeah, that's still in effect.
Right.
That's what you said, that's why we want to do it this way.
Right.
Because we still have some people that have not received theirs. Okay, how many people do participate in the HSA?
That I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think anybody's gonna know that. We can get that to you.
And do you think changing their insurance will encourage some people to put more into their HSA? Have you anticipated that? Because that 32-something may go up also.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, it could. The 32,000 is predicated on the current user base based on the different tiers that are in play right now. If by increasing the HSA match, that could change. If more people go into the high deductible plan and choose to do the HSA, that number could go up, but that's predicated on the way that the health insurance is distributed right now.
Yeah, because with me making insurance changes, there may be some of them, like you said, the other one, what was it, the PPO? they're not
EPO?
The EPO.
qualified for an HSA.
Right.
Because they don't have because every time we seem to do something, we affect something else negatively. I want everybody to be able to benefit from everything, take home more that they see. I want the base pay to be to where it'll attract somebody to come here. So I don't know exactly how we're gonna accomplish all that, but I'm with 85-15, Brad.
That's what I was gonna say, Brad, thank you for making that recommendation, and that's where I'm at. And this is something that we're gonna have to work our way out of, and we're gonna be addressing this now that we're aware of it. It kinda got lost, now that we're aware of it, we have to address it, and I'm sure we will.
And maybe the 1.5. Now, I don't know, okay, on my paperwork, you're asking for direction this item. Direction is not action.
Correct.
So how do we come about with action, because if we can't take any, because it's not action?
Go ahead.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, so what it will do is it will tell us, go forward with the 85-15, go forward with the HSA, right, at a minimum. That will affect the rest of the budget that we bring to you, so that will be, as far as we're concerned, locked in. And knowing what that number is, we then can come back to you with the rest of the budget based on whatever amount of money is left over based off our revenue projection. So again, it seems like 85-15 is the way we want to go. It seems like the HSA is the way we want to go. So if you give us direction on that tonight, and it sounds like that's what I have at this point, we would go forward with that cost and then see what falls out. Now, we could go back and look at the 1%, see if we could get away with the 1.5, right? We'll still have the step, right?
Get away with it.
Well, it's really predicated on, when you do the budget, you're projecting into the future. So what we're doing is we're saying, here's where we think our revenues are going to be. And again, with all the stuff going on in Ukraine, the high inflation rates, I think it is, what I don't want to happen is I don't want us to finally look at personnel and say, let's come at this in a holistic way and do something of significance, and then overstep. Everybody comes back and says, see, we told you, now we have a recession and so on. And so we've got some plans for that with a revenue stabilization that we can buffer, reduction in force. But again, I know everyone's eager to try and fix this, and I can't believe I'm the one pulling you back, but let's just have some patience, because this isn't a one-year answer, it should be a multiple-year answer. And the kind of scenarios that we've given you, particularly this 85-15 with the 1%, the HSA, the STEP, it's a very comprehensive, across-the-board package that impacts all employees, and it doesn't break the bank to the point where we get nervous about overextending in the first year. We want to be able to come back and have this conversation again the following budget cycle.
Well, I said it when you wanted, this rascal brought out $1,000. We come up with $1,000, which was $300,000. We had that then. Where is it now? Why aren't we tacking it to their base salary?
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, the bonus is predicated on one-time revenue. These numbers are predicated on ongoing, right? So they're two different pots of money, if you will.
Yeah, I know that, but we had it, so, I don't know. I'm just hoping the base pay, we can do something with it, because I do hear base pay to bring people here, because it affects the whole scale, in between and all that, so. It's very important to a lot of the employees, I know, so that's why I'm hoping, and I can't see Cabrina, so I don't get no body language tonight to.
We'll look at 1.5%,
Yeah,
see if we can do that.
You know, I don't know, keep talking or shut up or I'm going, you know, but that's my interest, Mr. Hemphill, that they be able to keep more in their pocket.
Right,
I'm done.
I'm with you.
Was anybody else have any other comment or anything? You have enough direction now?
I do. So 85-15 HSA is a go. And we can continue to look at what the balance of funds are. We can continue to look at if we can take the 1%, maybe up another 0.5%. So we'll look at that and see if we can bring it back and see what we can come up with.
I was gonna say Cabrina.
Want to scoot over more? Here, I'll scoot over. Can you scoot over more? He wants to see you.
She's hiding.
Or move the podium back. There you go.
And legally, we can go forward with direction, not action.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, was there anything else? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on then. We'll move on to, what, number 8? The resolution, R 22-008. It's a budget guidance. John?
So give me 1 second. Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. Staff is seeking council input regarding the development of this year's budget guidance document. It will be used to provide us direction in prioritizing the FY23 budget cycle, and it also will be used for guidance even beyond. The annual budget process is something that not only deals with the priorities for the current year, but also with trying to deal with continuity over time. Because we, as an organization, do not have a vision, a strategic plan, I have expanded in some sense the way that I put this document together so that it addresses current year budget items, but it also addresses items that have been brought up by council in work sessions in areas that council has indicated they wanted to see work moving forward. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go through the presentation that I went through in the work session. And again, I know that there's been some hesitancy on some of the materials that are in here, and that's fine. My intention was that when I had the work session, that we would be able to move forward with changes at that time. Unfortunately, we were more rushed than that, and I went through it at breakneck speed. So the intent was always to do any changes in the work session, come back with the resolution with those changes incorporated. So the presentation that I will give tonight is exactly the same presentation that I gave during the work session. If council is uncomfortable with any of the bullet points in this, we can table it and bring it back at another meeting. So I don't want you to feel like you have to go forward and say that this is the way it has to be. Please, if there's anything that you're not comfortable with, we can make the adjustments and bring it back another time. So with that said, let me go through it again at a somewhat more relaxed pace. Again, as you're aware, when we pass the tentative budget, it's dictated by state statute. The main legal action of the tentative budget is to set a cap that cannot be exceeded by the final budget. You can make all kinds of changes to the tentative budget to the final, you just can't exceed that cap. There'll be a public hearing on the tax levy and also an adoption of the final budget. Again, all of these and the timing of these activities are dictated by state statute. Obviously, we've done the work session on the 17th. We've also done a rather fast-paced version of the budget guidance review. We will be scheduling budget meetings with council members as we have done in the past in smaller non-quorum size groups. And then on the 28th, we'll be bringing the CIP. The CIP will contain projects, some of which we are recommending use ARPA funding, so we'll have a discussion on ARPA funding at that time. Then we get into a series of meetings where we present by department area through March and April. And then in May, we bring you the entire budget. That should actually be 2023 budget. And then we adopt a tentative on May 23rd. We have our public hearing for the budget and tax levy on the 13th. And then we do the tax levy on the 27th. So now what basically these areas are subject areas within city functions. And in them, these are some guiding principles that I thought reflected comments that I had gotten from council in work sessions or in council meetings. So again, as we go through some of these slides, if there are things in here that we aren't comfortable with, I can make changes and bring it back on another meeting, and we can do another version of it. So, following on the organizational expectations and guidance document, we want to start making decisions that are cognizant of being consistent over a longer period of time. We've had these discussions, changes in management, changes in council, but again, we should have some idea moving forward of what we're focusing on and have some consistency in our annual budgets that have a cumulative effect that achieve longer-term goals. Continue our ongoing efforts in recreational amenities and programming. I think that we've got some really good input from our citizens on this. In fact, I'll be meeting with Nora this week to get some more input from her to kind of get a sense of where she feels maybe some next steps should be and hopefully provide some additional input. Seek citizen input regarding important community issues. It essentially is a broader version of the Parks and Recreation Committee. In a past life, we had a committee that had a citizens advisory role. Council could assign whatever subjects, whether it's recreation, council salary increases, ethics, capital budgeting. You could use that body to get additional public input. So you would kind of broaden the scope away from just recreation, and then they would be able to address topics that you would give to them. Commit to
I'm not necessarily for that one. Another committee.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay, all right. Commit to the development and implementation of a long-term consistent employee compensation plan based on best practices. Again, when we approach things like capital improvements, infrastructure, sidewalks, water, infrastructure, gas, there's an assumption that we're following various guidelines, rules, and best practices. We should be following those same guidelines and best practices as it regards employee compensation, which is why I keep trying to emphasize, as we were talking about health insurance and benefits and salaries, that it should be an ongoing conversation that's predicated on industry-accepted best practices. Continue to pursue and enforce policies that support strong fiscal management and oversight, such as a revenue stabilization policy. This is a new concept I want to introduce. Again, it's something I've used in the past, and we have a large reserve in most of our major operating funds. We will bring you a policy that will provide parameters that would essentially say that 50% fund balance, we're going to make access to a certain amount of that money if certain criteria are met. So for example, if the revenues that we projected in this year's budget go 5% or more below that projection, it would activate staff to access a revenue stabilization that would be used in that 50% fund balance. So you're not adding more, you're using what's there. We would come to council with a request to use those funds to help balance the budget out if we needed to. And it would all be predicated on council action. So again, the idea is to level out the business cycle and have the minimal impact on our operations. That would be coupled with a reduction in force plan that we used during COVID, so we could balance those two things out. We could put a hiring freeze on for non-essential staff. You could move employees and have them working on projects in non-general fund areas to help alleviate stress on the general fund. You could reduce work hours, right? All these things could be put in play that would alleviate the need for any kind of layoffs if there was an economic downturn.
Mr. Casellas,
Yes, sir.
I wanted to clarify me saying I didn't necessarily want another committee. That's because I think our staff's that committee. They know their own departments. They know what projects they got. They know what CIP they're working on, which ones are ready to go and stuff. I just think another committee would be like some more bosses for them. And they don't need any more bosses. They know their own departments.
Okay. Vice Mayor Ortega, is there anyone that have any additional input? We could remove that. It's not a requirement. Again, nothing in here is a requirement. These are simply guiding principles.
I like it myself, the principles.
I do as well. And as far as another, I thought when you first said, Arnold, that you meant in addition to that one where we could keep that one and use them for.
The park ones? Yeah, the park ones, they they want to stay engaged.
Well, but I assume we
Yeah.
would use them for similar,
Yeah, possibly, yeah, we already have them, but like sometimes you get boards and stuff, and if you don't take their recommendations, they get mad at you.
right.
They say, why am I even on here? You're just wasting my time. So I look to the staff for the projects they need and the guidance they give me.
Did I understand that your thought is to keep the recreation committee together, but to use them for other things?
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman McGoy, my intent was to make them more generic in their title and broaden their scope at council discretion. So let's say you turn them into the Citizens Advisory Committee, and the only thing you ever gave them was recreation, that's all they would ever work on. But if you decided that you wanted to get further input on the CIP, right, or you wanted to have a discussion on, we did one on public input, ethics, salaries, it could be anything that you wanted it to be. So again, it's not a requirement. It's just simply another way of getting additional citizen input into the decision-making process. When we come to a meeting like this, it's fairly intimidating for people, right? And when we get to this point, most of the things that are on this agenda, they're done for the most part. So by having these committees where you reach out to the citizens, and they themselves can go further out into the community and have their own meetings if they want to, you're creating a more relaxed atmosphere that provides you with additional input that's advisory only, but in a less intimidating environment, which may engender more public involvement. So again, if the idea is to get more input from your citizenry, it seems to be an effective way to do so, but it's not required.
I have the thought that because this was put together as a recreational thing, had it been put together as a CIP issue, I might have recommended someone different to that than I mean, not saying that the person I recommended isn't vastly more knowledgeable than I am on all levels, but I probably would have put somebody else on that committee if it was for a different purpose.
Okay. So I guess the sense I'm getting is maybe we can take that one out.
I'm not opposed to having it, I think sometimes if it's for a specific point, we might want a different group, I don't know.
And again, the way that it's worded, it says that you seek additional input. It doesn't name a committee. So if you decided you wanted another committee that did CIP, you would convene that committee. It's just leaving the door open as a suggestion to get additional public input. You can do it in any fashion you wish. It doesn't specify whether you call it a CIP or Citizens Advisory. It's just generally speaking, you have folks that are, one of the things is they need to show up. And so usually the people that you pick are engaged, and we don't have issues with forums and things of that nature.
And this might be a silly point, but if we didn't include it in the budget guidance document, doesn't mean we still can't form the committee.
Vice Mayor
Correctly, I mean,
Ortega.
we formed this, or without it being in our, it doesn't preclude us from.
No. No.
Right, whether it's in there or not.
No. The idea is additional public input.
Right.
I think that's
I
the
like
main
it,
key,
yeah.
how, the best way to get, to hear from the public, what type of committee, well, that's to be determined.
And it may be that we never do anything other than the rec committee. But I firmly believe that trying to find additional ways to get input from your citizens is a good thing.
Definitely.
And I think the Recreation Committee is one of the most successful things that's occurred in the last, since I've been around.
It was a good experience. It was a good experience. But again, you're not locked into anything, nor are you locked into any particular subjects. It's simply saying public input, probably a good thing. If an issue were to arise, we would consider doing that. You don't have to.
Okay, is there anybody else have any other comments on resolution R 22-008?
I think he's got more slides.
Oh, there's plenty more slides.
How many more?
That's about how fast we were last time.
We do it.
Gave you a short agenda. Again, public input, interaction, interorganizational, obviously League of Cities and Towns. I think that Matthew has been engaging more and more with that. I'd like to see that grow more. I'd like to see us more engaged at the league policy, working on the policy statement. I'd like to see us get our delegation to the city during a non-session and give them a tour and show them around, build relationships. There's a lot we can do with the league that we're not doing right now. Again, proactively seek input regarding city projects and services. Maintain the website. We've got a new website. It's up and running. It looks pretty good. Matthew's in charge of kind of administering the operational side of that. So again, I'd like to see that develop more and using that more for public outreach to develop that, have more communication. Obviously, maintain a good relationship with our traditional media and work more on the Sister Cities program. We've been fairly busy of late, but I would like to see that since we adopted the program, I would like to see us get more input even from other organizations that maybe help us create programs, whether it's the high school, the college, businesses. Each of them would have their own flavor and their own different type of interaction. Maybe we have an interorganizational committee that looks at that. So I'd like to see that develop further, make something from it. Obviously, amending the financial policies, we talked about that, maintain our 50% fund balance criteria. Developing projection models for all major operating funds. We're using one right now with the general fund for this budget. Cabrina uses a lighter version for utilities every year for the revenue projections. These models are extremely robust, and they can help us plan over a longer term with a higher level of certitude, and it also allows us to run scenarios. So again, that is going to be a major goal of the upcoming year, to get these in place so that we can use them for longer term planning cycles. Also, as a spin-off of those, develop quarterly reporting. I think the monthly reporting we do, I don't know that anybody's really looking at it, and I think reporting expenditures on a monthly basis is basically a waste of time. If you look at the rest of the world, corporations, they do it on a quarterly basis. We should do it on a quarterly basis. You'll have a rhythm. You'll get a sense of how our budget plays out every year. Revenues will continue to be looked at on a monthly basis. Community development, we'd like to continue to develop some expertise in economic development. Our community development director has been taking classes on that. There are a lot of areas that we can do more there, I think, and the airport is one of them, so I'd like to see that develop further. Identify and recognize opportunities to streamline the building code. We've heard that repeatedly. I've had conversations with our community development director about that. So when those opportunities arise, I'd like to see us make changes where possible. This last year, we did something with like sprinklers and the fees associated with that. Essentially eliminated a large charge to those who had sprinklers put in. So I think that was a big win. I don't think anybody liked that. It had just been there for a long time. There are probably more opportunities like that. Would like to see us do more on proactive code enforcement. We talked a little bit about like a split position. I don't think that's going to happen in this budget cycle because I don't think the resources are there, but I would like to see us even develop more capacity, more attention to that with existing staff.
Is that the one we were talking about, Jamie getting and taking over?
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, we're not going to do that position, but I would like to see the existing staff focus some of their day on it. So it wouldn't be any new position that we had discussed earlier, but I think it's something we need to look at. Seek opportunities to maximize CDBG. Again, we've kind of been enamored with this 4-year cycle, but CDBG has a lot of programs, and I think that the side benefit other than sidewalks from our last CDBG cycle, which I know everybody's very excited about. There are other opportunities to approach CDBG in a more programmatic way, and I think that as we transition into a more high-level understanding of that, I'd like to see that function transfer to community development. I'd like to see us pursue, there's things that you can get money for rehabbing houses, blight, so I think there's some long-term opportunities to make it more than just here's $250,000 every 4 years, what do you want to spend it on? There's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's more potential in that program. I think we should look into it.
Be ready. Be ready.
Be ready.
That's the name of the game, being shovel ready.
Be ready,
all that
shovel
stuff
ready.
there.
Make oversight management of city special events programming a fully administered function by staff, and council has already gone in that direction. Human resources, again, this is a huge focus area for me across the board. Again, institute, maintain competitive salary and benefits. I think I've heard a lot of that tonight. I am totally on board with that, and we need to do it in a responsible way financially. I think we can do more there, and we hopefully will do more there in future cycles. Do a survey, kind of figure out where we are in the market based on the work session. I think the majority of council members wanted to do that from an internal perspective. We can at least start there. Encourage employee development through training and education. This is significantly lacking, and we already have things in the budget this year and ideas moving forward to change the way we approach our management staff. I think we need some formalized management training. The HR director has been in discussions with a consultant. There are already some programs that she is moving forward with. They will be in the budget. Our staff needs training across the board, so including our management staff. So that's going to be an emphasis. Again, seek to utilize succession planning in order to provide employees with internal promotional opportunities. I think we've done some of that already. I think you're going to see more of that in the budget cycle coming up. There'll be some discussions in some of the utilities that feed into this concept. And I think it's important that we cultivate employees from within and allow them to progress through the organization, but give them the skills so that when they take that next step, they're ready to take on that higher level role. And then continue to develop employee appreciation. We have an employee appreciation committee. They've been doing a lot of work, even surveying the employees to find out what they want. So we're looking very closely at this and trying to find different ways that we can, recognize employees, whether it be, just a luncheon at the MIAC or maybe on the Spot Awards, who knows, maybe get back into some kind of longevity pay. So we'll find out what the survey turns up and what the employees say that they want. Airport, again, another hot item. I think we need to explore economic development opportunities out there. We're in the process now of addressing bullet point number 2. We've had interviews with some airport managers. And again, the emphasis has to be not only on day-to-day operations, but where do we go in the future? So again, I think the airport manager working with the community development director can try to seek out additional opportunities. I know Councilman Seal had mentioned something about doing some work with emplanements. One of the individuals we interviewed had discussed that with us. Maybe that's a possibility. It's something we can look at. Explore the opportunity to expand land holdings. Again, that was an issue that was raised. And develop, expand airport infrastructure. Again, we're already doing that with our water. We're putting another line in up there to bring water to the east along the hangars. And so we've already begun the process of improving the infrastructure. We've done stuff with the gates. So we're paying a lot of attention to the airport right now. And then develop and implement the minimum operating standards and rules and regs. Again, from an administrative standpoint, I don't really think I have to emphasize how important those items are, and that when there are holes in them, they can cause us a lot of problems. A lot of these rules and regs are written for when things go wrong, and if they're not well written, they just add to the problem. Again, various economic development opportunities down on Main Street. There's a local group of managers, they've been getting together talking about local economic development. We still have money in the micro loan program. We still have the business programs that we implemented. And again, using the website as an economic development outreach tool. There's a section on the website that does that. We have a vendor that updates our demographic information, but it definitely could use some new information on it, so we should review that and move forward with that. And then utilities. It's been 5 years since we did a utility rate study. Given all the volatility in the market, it's probably a good idea if we revisit that. So I'd like to see us pursue that in the upcoming budget cycle. We discussed public outreach regarding water conservation, and we can do that with other utilities as well. I've had conversations with our utility director on this subject, and they are working with Matthew to try and develop various public outreach tools that we can use to educate the public just on water conservation alone. Explore more opportunities on reuse. Again, Fry Mesa water usage, that's in the works already with the utility director. working to expand our customer base. I mean, we're using the USDA grant to do the Lebanon area. If there are more opportunities out there, we can seek them out. And then seek potential of developing a discount program. What turns out is that we already have one, so I guess we didn't need to do that. We have the Give from the Heart program. I guess if there's some desire to go above and beyond that, we can do that. If council wants us to bring something to them to discuss it, we could, but we already have something in place that does that. So with that, I am finished, and I am open to any questions or comments that you might have.
Anybody have any?
We hit on amending policies. Now, I thought dealing with policies and salaries was the council.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, the policies that I'm discussing are financial in nature, so they would come to you for approval in order for us to move forward. There's some internal administrative policies that we do, not all of them come to the council. In the case of the ones that are on here, they would.
So the policy changes in human resource recently, you didn't bring them to us because they weren't financial.
The ones that were financially impactful, we did. The ones that weren't, we did not.
And that's because that's the way it is. We don't deal, I thought we dealt, it says we deal with policies, I thought it was all policies. If you change the wording in the manual, that doesn't involve us.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, these are administrative policies, not council policies. They're internal operational policies.
So you won't bring them to our attention.
Not if they're not financially impactful, no.
I understand that's where you are with that one. Now, when you talked about the coding and stuff, I'm leery about the code because I understand you're taking some codes away from the fire chief, or you're wanting to. Where are they gonna be picked up if we're gonna be waiting on them? I don't know what codes, you didn't identify what, it looked like we were identifying the codes.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, the codes that we changed as it regards the fire chief specifically address the fire chief. So again, it's not, there's.
I thought when, last time, some of the code looking that the chief did now was probably gonna go to Jamie now, I don't know, I just want them to go somewhere where they're gonna be looked at.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, I think you're talking about the fire
Well,
codes?
Yeah, well, that's because I don't know. I don't know what codes you just talked about right there getting changed or going somewhere else.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
I talked about code changes, I talked about code enforcement.
Get code enforcement then, either
Yes.
way.
Yes,
We're talking about changing the enforcement of something to Jamie.
we weren't talking about changing the enforcement, we're saying that her shop would take a more proactive approach to doing code enforcement, which is in her shop. The fire chief would emphasize certain codes, and he already participates in that mostly on the side of project development. So that wouldn't change.
It'll come up when you go forward with it some more. Now, also in all this you talked about guidance and stuff, you never touched on morale, the employee morale, which is very important too, and money doesn't solve all that. And I know that's one of our problems, yeah, but that doesn't get identified in anything we talked about.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, it does. It gets addressed in the Human Resources section that talks about salary and benefits, succession planning, recognition, right, events. All of those go together to boost employee morale. That's the whole point of having that discussion, and that's why there's such an emphasis right now in human resources, because employee morale has been lacking, and we're taking a concerted look at that to try and improve it, and we're doing it at various stages. So obviously, salary and benefits, trust me, is of concern to the employees. There are other things that we can do. We have an employee recognition committee. They're surveying the employees now about events that we can have, right? Providing training. We've been doing things in the buildings, upgrading the way the buildings look, how they're cared for, so that the environment, I mean, the bathrooms in the upstairs city hall were an embarrassment. You know, I had people coming from the state attorney general's office, I didn't even want them to go in there. they've been fixed. So we're addressing employee morale across the board on multiple levels.
Okay, because, I mean, I know somebody, say, working in the park, they're upset with their pay because McDonald's could be getting close to the same, but I'm talking about supervisors and directors and them kind that are leaving. I want to make sure their morale is addressed and that it's looked at and it's taken care of and an emphasis be put on that to improve that.
Understood.
Okay. Also, one of the things you talked about working with the League of Cities and Towns, one of the things I've talked to Matt a little bit, and I know when we get equipment, sometimes we go to the state yard and buy used equipment or things like that, or that. Matt from League of Cities and Towns, he's working. I don't know that we don't have a way to trade equipment with other cities and towns before, because otherwise all we do is put it in the auction and we get minimum amount for it. Before it loses its life, I don't know if we can work with the other cities and towns to trade.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, I think that's always an option, but I think we tend to run our stuff pretty long, and so when we get to the end of the useful life, I don't know that there's a whole lot of life left in it.
Well, if the Leagues of Cities and Towns comes to you, it's not a shock that we thought, because they may, you know what I mean. It's obvious we might have something to trade, or they have something, and they just haven't advertised it, and we can get it, and vice versa. That's all I wrote down on this, Mr. Casellas. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, anybody else? In that case, we have a motion for resolution R 22-008.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Tammy?
Resolution number R22-008, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Arizona, adopting a budget guidance resolution for the fiscal year 2023 annual budget cycle.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 9, the ordinance. Ordinance number 022-001, the fire department. John?
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. This is the second reading of ordinance number 022-001, amending the City of Safford Municipal Code Title II, Sections 2.40.020, 2.40.040, 2.40050, 2.40.060, and 2.40.080 concerning the process by which the fire chief is appointed and dismissed, the process by which the fire department rules and regulations document is updated, annual compensation review, fire chief powers and duties, including removal of subsection F, inspection buildings and premises, availability of department records for review, hiring process, and grammatical corrections. In our last conversation during the first read, there were some recommendations that were made. So as a result of that meeting, I went back, met with Clark, we sat down together, we went over the entire section, and we put our heads together. And for the sake of Councilman Lopez, I took out other, and we now have enumerated all of the changes that we made, just so it's clear what's being changed. And so when you look at the background information, obviously relegating dismissal of the fire chief to the city manager, that was part of the impetus behind some of the changes, only because we had the council and the city manager both performing that function. We changed the process by which the fire chief is approved from nomination by fire department personnel, approval by city council, and appointment by the city manager to nomination by fire department personnel, recommendation by city manager to city council, approval by city council. We updated the process by which the fire department rules and regulations document is to be updated. It sounded like the language in there had addressed a very particular point in time. Obviously, those rules and regs would be updated over time, so I would work with the fire chief whenever those changes were needed. There are some changes needed, and I will be working with the fire chief to make them. Review of compensation annually. Again, it doesn't require council to give a raise to the fire chief or the assistant fire chief, but I would like it to be part of the discussion so that we don't go 10 years again without at least evaluating that. Again, it doesn't require any action or changes. It simply says it's part of the annual budget process. At the recommendation of Councilman McGoy and further conversations with the fire chief, subsection F, inspections, was removed. Apparently, it was a vestige of a bygone era, so that has been taken out. Availability of operational records for inspections. As an administrative function, I moved that from council to the city manager. However, there still is an annual report by the fire chief required in the code, and that will still move forward. Clarify firefighter hiring process. This is something Clark brought to my attention. We made some changes there. And again, that the firefighters would be nominated by the fire department, but they go through the typical HR process in terms of going through the hiring process. We clarified that language in the code. I capitalized the word city somewhere in there, and I corrected spelling of the word willfully, and those two items would have been, in the past version, your other, now explicitly laid out. And so with that, I will answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions?
I
Comments?
don't have any questions. I pretty much still feel the same way. The over 100-year-old institution, been a volunteer institution, been worked by the firemen themselves. I don't see the necessity of the manager being able to fire the chief. I just don't think that part's necessary. It's an old tradition. And some more of this stuff is reading, and it's going somewhere where it's not gonna be volunteer for too long. So, I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Still don't agree with it. That's it, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I understand the reason it was how it was, and I understand why they want to change it and make it make sense. I mean, make it parallel to each other. And being that talked it over with the manager, and he can't tell me how it'll bite us, and the chief is in favor of it and can't tell me how it'll bite us. And so I'm gonna say we go with it. I'll make that motion. And knowing that if it ever does bite us, we'll change it again.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Read it to me.
Ordinance number O21-001, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title II, Sections 2.40.020, 2.40.040, 2.40.050, 2.40.080, Fire Department of the City of Safford Municipal Code.
Thank you. Okay. Then we'll move on to item 10, contracts, agreements, and bids. The first one is the Karasco Wellhead Treatment Plant. Morgan?
Good evening. This is a request for Vice Mayor and City Council to approve and award the purchase of the treatment plant for the Karasco well in the amount of $684,050 from AdEdge Water Technologies. The City of Safford recently went through the formal bid process for the construction of the Karasco well treatment plant. The bids that were received exceeded the budgeted amount that required the city to reject all bids. The city would like to construct the plant in phases and administrate the project in-house in order to cut costs. AdEdge Water Technology was the only treatment provider who responded to the request for proposal and provided a quote for the system. It is recommended to proceed with the purchase of the proposed treatment plant for the Karasco well. I would like to note that this project will be funded by the excess WIFA funds from the Bonita 4 and 5 project that was constructed down Highway 70 in Lone Star. To kind of put it into perspective of what we were dealing with the budget and the quotes or the bids that we received. Right now I'm proposing to purchase the skid for $680,000, and we received a bid from one company that was going to charge us $986,000 for the skid, for the skid alone, or the skid and the installation. And the other company was going to charge us $1.2 million for the skid and installation. So this is kind of one of the reasons why we're proposing to do it in-house and cut costs. Are there any questions?
questions?
No, I had a lot of them, Vice Mayor, so Mr. Seal took me for a tour of it and showed me where it was, where he's talking to placing the skids, what's involved with merging with the Kempton well, why he wants to do it, how he can get to the highway, 1,000 gallons per minute, and it was very informative to me, so I enjoyed it. So I don't have no questions tonight, I don't like that.
Was that in the form of a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I think we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll move on to item number 2, the wastewater treatment plant South Keller for Rehab.
This is a request for Vice Mayor and Council to approve and award the contract to Schofield in the amount of $321,650 to perform the needed work to rehabilitate the South Clarifier at the wastewater treatment plant. The City of Safford wastewater treatment plant was constructed in 2002 and has 2 clarifiers that act as a settling zone for the activated sludge. The clarifier components are epoxy coated and submerged for operation under wastewater that is corrosive in nature. Over time, the epoxy coating will break down, which will allow the deterioration of the metal and jeopardize the structural integrity of the operation. The clarifier was drained to assess the metal thickness, and it was determined that there was corrosion that needed to be addressed. The city went through the formal bid process and received 1 bid from Schofield in the amount of $321,650 and 1 bid from KE&G in the amount of $538,740. The recommendation, the city recommends awarding the contract to Schofield in the amount of $321,650 to perform the rehabilitation work needed for the South Clarifier.
Thank you, Morgan. Anybody have any comments or questions on it?
You, sir. Again, I had lots of questions and doubts, because that's a lot of money. I don't get much sleep after raising my hand on $385,000, so Mr. Seal took me on that tour, and one of my questions was how he liked the new contractor that we're dealing with now. And he also showed me some of the areas that contractor took upon themselves to fix and put together on their own. It saved us money already. And I saw the rust and the upkeep that was needed there. And I can understand why this money's needed to upgrade it, even though we're like at 50%. So I didn't want to spend the money, but I knew it needed to be done. And also it smelled like money out there.
Again, is that a motion?
Second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Morgan, I'd like to say thank you for the good work that you're doing.
No problem, thank you. And also Vice Mayor, Council, in regards to the Jacobs contractor, I do plan on having them come and present what they've done so far to the plant. And I think you guys will be impressed. They're definitely exceeding the expectation, and they are all hands-on, and they know what they're doing, so.
I think it's just good, it's nice to see what's happening out there, because if I'm not mistaken, a few years back, we were getting to the point where it was going downhill. So I'm really glad, I'm happy to see that,
We're doing a lot of work, and there's still work to be done, so.
yeah, that's good.
And Al's still out there.
Okay. And we'll move on to item number 11, any announcements of current events? John?
I just want to make, excuse me, council aware that we've been in ongoing conversations with our bond counsel for the PSPRS bond. Interest rates have been somewhat volatile. They have gone up quite a bit since our last conversation. So we've gone from somewhere around 3.5 to somewhere over 4 now. So I'll be on the phone with them in the morning, and again, they will, basically they put the bond out there, and the interest rate is what people are willing to pay essentially to buy that issuance. And so the higher the interest rate, the more, cost it is to us, but that may be needed to draw them in. So we will be on the phone tomorrow, and it's more than likely that the interest rate on the bond will be above 4%, somewhere between 4 and 4.5. looking at the numbers on that, it still makes sense to do it. Our principal payment will be up. It looks more like the original principal payments, but relative to what we would have spent this year, it's still a savings over the life of the bond. If we were even at 4.5%, we're still looking at about $4 million net present value savings. So it still makes sense to go forward with that. Also, we can refinance that bond after 10 years. So if the interest rates were to go down over time, we could refinance it and get a lower rate. But even with that higher interest rate, it still makes sense to move forward, I think, and go forward with that bond. So I just wanted you to be aware, it still falls within the parameters of the documents presented to you, which had a ceiling of, I believe, 4.75%. It will be less than that. I'm hoping it'll be closer to 4%, but we're not gonna know that till we see who wants a bite on that bond. We did get insurance on the bond. We got a AA bond rating on our bond, which is very good. So we're in about as good a position as we can be on it, so I guess we'll know probably more after tomorrow, and I'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, I have something. Mr. Casella, is there any way we can police Walmart and Carl's Jr. once again? We're starting to get clutter.
For
in
the
bins.
pink boxes?
The pink boxes and the white boxes. I went by the other day and there was stuff literally on top of the bins
Okay.
being left and all that. We can just check them out, please. I know there's not much we can do, but just remind these people, you know.
Well, we'll rattle the cage a little bit, see if we can get some
Okay.
action.
Thank you.
Okay, then, Mayor, Vice Mayor. And I know, like you said, the rate's going up, but I believe you and Cabrini have made the transition when we had people leave and stuff, and I still think we're in good hands that way. I'm not, because of the world events, I'm concerned, but I think you guys are frugal enough to handle that. I'm glad that you guys are here for that, and I just appreciate you in that way. I also have heard a lot of good news about we didn't reduce any of our current events around town. In fact, people want more, and I told them it just depends how far we can stretch the employees is my main concern. And a lot of people are looking forward to working at Jamie, so I hope you don't get bombarded with all them decisions that we threw on you. And so, thank you.
Okay. Then number 12, a report on operational items, and there's none.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
About time. Second?
Second.
Okay. Wow, the slow. I'm fast. We're adjourned.
Usually you make the motion and he
I
makes
know.
a second.
That's like hanging out with you.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, about that.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
I know that, I mean,
I'll continue getting those signatures. and all
Peter
that, so-
Gallan's who I put on there, and he's just everything recreational, he knows it top to bottom. But I wouldn't even have thought of him if we were doing wastewater treatment or, you know,
And I got like,
so.
And then as far as it
it
went
took me
with,
like 3.5 hours, because I had stuff
about the
to
fire
everybody.
chief and all that stuff, I'm glad you.